Welcome, everybody, to the workshop, Become a Daily Expert with Prebuilt. It's so great to have you here today. My name is Tasha. I'm the community manager for Peer Connection. Peer Connection is Daily's developer forum where you can get help using Daily and also learn more about WebRTC in general because we love the technology. If you're just getting to know Daily, hi, we're the brand that helps developers build live video and audio experiences into any product. Here's what you can expect in today's workshop. Most importantly, yes, this workshop is being recorded, and we will email you a link to the recording once this is done. If you want to code along with us, we'll be using Daily and Glitch for this workshop, and John will tell you a little bit more about that once we begin. Audience cameras and mics are off by default, so don't worry. Nobody's going to accidentally see or hear you, and we're not going to put you on the spot. But we do want to hear from you, so you can communicate with us via the chat box. There, we have Dailynistas in the chat. Joey from our amazing Daily support team is in there to help you out. We will also stop at the end of each section and make time for questions. There'll also be time at the end of the workshop to answer questions. And then following the workshop, once the recording is ready, I'll post that in the developer forum where you can watch it again and ask additional questions if you have them. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and pass the mic to John. Hi, John.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our workshop on how to become an expert with Daily Prebuilt. As a quick bit of preamble, for those of you that want to follow along, you'll need to set up accounts with both Daily and Glitch. You can access those with the URL that are on the screen right now. And for the purposes of this demo, you don't need to enter any credit card information or anything like that. The free tiers will be perfectly fine and everything you need to get up and running. Also note that everything we build today will be made available to you after. Should you prefer just to watch and listen, that's absolutely fine. And if you're wondering what Glitch is like a hosted cloud development environment that will allow us to write some code and instantly see the results without having to set up a hosted server or deployment process or anything like that. It's an excellent tool for live collaborative building, much like we're going to do today. Okay, so by way of introduction, hi, I'm John. I'm a proud member of the solutions team here at Daily, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jack. Jack, I can't see, but maybe you can unmute your camera and just wave to the folks. Yeah, as solutions engineers, we work with our customers every day to realize their big ideas for live video and audio applications. I hope we can share some of the nuggets of wisdom we've learned by working across an ocean of different web audio use cases here with you today. Tasha already kind of touched on this, but I'll use this as a chance to plug that we have an upcoming kind of solutions office hours session starting next week where you can drop in and ask us anything you like. For more information on that, please sign up over at our community, Peer Connection, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you guys there. All right, so what are we going to build together today? We're going to step through how you can build your own web-based video call experience in its entirety using Daily Prebuilt. As interactive media becomes increasingly critical as a function for how we use the web and engage with our relevant communities, I hope today will provide you with enough information to begin working with Daily and build on what you learn to develop your own vision for your own web call experiences. What we'll cover is obviously how to get set up using Glitch and what you get out of the box. We're then going to demonstrate the customizability features to brand and style the app to your liking. Hopefully we can get fun and creative there, maybe use some fun colors. We'll then briefly touch on how you can moderate your call experience. Some use cases like to be really granular about what their end users can do, whether they're call owners, moderators, or just viewers. So we'll cover the concept of meeting tokens and how they can be used in practice. Another common thing we see our customers do is want to implement scheduling into their call UIs. So we'll cover how you can work with our friends over at cal.com to tie our creation into a really amazing and fully featured scheduling tool. You'll probably find this part particularly exciting if you're running like a bookable workshop or an online class or something like that. I'll then hand over to Jack to take all this even further, because this is about becoming experts after all. And Jack will show you how you can write a sprinkling of code and extend what is possible with Daily Prebuilt out of the box. He promised me there will be both unicorns and rainbows. And whilst I'm not entirely sure what he means by that, it sounds fun. I'm excited. So let's do it. You might be sitting there wondering right now, oh gosh, how much experience am I going to need in order to follow along with this workshop? Are there going to be C++ pointers or a whole manner of JavaScript foolery? To answer on a scale of low code to highly experienced engineer where this workshop falls, I'm just going to take 2 minutes to cover some important context about what Daily Prebuilt actually is and how it all works under the hood. Just 1 second. Okay, so Daily Prebuilt is designed to cater for teams looking to get started with their own core UIs, but without the requirement to write too much code. It's designed to be feature-rich as an entry point that caters for the most common core use cases that we see at Daily, but it can also be deeply customized to extend to align with your own intended experience. To help you where Daily Prebuilt sits within our ecosystem, I'm going to show you now a somewhat scary looking layer cake of the various entry points for engineers to build WebRTC applications. This is purely to illustrate the story, so please don't worry if it's all a little bit too much. We'll get back to Daily Prebuilt shortly after. So at its lowest level, Daily provides an abstraction around the core concepts of WebRTC. As well as the infrastructure, the services, and all the complicated things that power reliable online video and audio calls. That's all the way from one-to-one sessions to those in the hundreds of thousands of people all across the globe using devices of all shapes and sizes. Whilst it's totally possible to do all these things yourself, it's a mammoth undertaking. It would require huge amounts of investment into engineering and ongoing maintenance. So Daily exists to do that instead, so you don't even have to think about it. If you were to do this, you'd need a large and highly experienced team of developers that have an intrinsic understanding of the technology, which is why that bar is all the way over in the experience section, and I would not recommend you do that. The next slice of our kind of layer cake is the SDKs that we provide to engineers who want to work as closely to the metal as possible, but avoid the need for that mammoth investment that I mentioned before. These SDKs allow engineers to keep focus on their client experiences so you can interact with our services with the target platform that you have in mind, whether that's web, mobile, or something else entirely. Today, we're going to focus on creating a JavaScript application that will work across all common browsers, or you could indeed embed it into a mobile web container or something like that. Our SDKs do have a really wide service area to cover. So that's from the user interface, the management and playback of video and audio tracks, and all the analytics and real-time network optimizations that you need if you are building a custom core UI. Whilst we kind of work tirelessly here at Daily to make sure these SDKs are as ergonomic for engineers as possible, some development skill is still required to build a fully custom application. So things are a lot easier than if you were just working with the low-level stuff, but you still need to know how to build applications. To make this slightly easier for engineers, we introduce this third layer to our delicious cake, which is the open source sample code that Daily maintains in order to reduce the amount of code developers need to write themselves. A typical example is our Daily React library, which contains ready-to-use components, hooks, and helpers that drastically reduce how much boilerplate code is needed so you can get your big idea to market sooner. These ready-to-use components have the added benefit of being maintained by Daily and its community, meaning you benefit from all the fixes we deliver to address the ever-changing browser WebRTC implementations, or the specific quirky stuff that you typically get with Safari. Not dropping shade on Safari, but it's typically them. This brings the level of expertise required when building a fully custom UI down even further. However, for all those folks that still don't want to think about anything to do with hosting, code maintenance, bug fixing, we have this final layer in our cake, which is Daily Prebuilt. Daily Prebuilt is hosted and managed by us and can be set up with just a few lines of code on your web page, which we'll do together very shortly. So why did I scare you guys with this really weird looking slide? It's primarily to articulate that our pre-built product is built on top of all the same libraries that other developers are using, meaning it can be extended and customized in a similar such fashion. Should you require a piece of functionality that doesn't exist out of the box, you don't need to fully eject from the safety of the pre-built product and can instead write snippets of your own code that interact with the underlying SDKs to make it work how you like. All that said, all that said, the workshop will be fine for folks that have a basic understanding of HTML and JavaScript. Jack and I will try to cater to those that want to go deeper by touching on some fairly technical concepts, but rest assured, none of those are required to leave this session feeling accomplished and ready to have fun with your own exciting core UI. I'll also shout out to Jack's previous webinar on the basics of Daily Prebuilt, which you can check out. Tasha, I'm not sure if you have a link handy, maybe you can drop that in the chat. That session will go slightly deeper on what Prebuilt's all about. So if you'd like to check that out after, you can totally do that. But enough context, let's get building. I'm just going to briefly pause here and check in with chat. Sorry for the crazy screen effect. How are we doing? All right.
It looks like we're good so far. If anyone has questions, you can type them into the chat anytime, and we'll stop just like this at the end of every section and help you out.
Thanks, Tasha. Okay, let's get going. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and set up a new glitch application. I hope you guys can see that. Tasha, let me know if you can't see glitch right now. And you'll notice at the top right of the page, there's a new project button. And if you click that, you can see all the ready to roll projects that Glitch has available from Node applications, React applications, and so on and so forth. We don't need to do anything complicated today. We're just going to build a static website. So the Glitch Hello website project will be totally fine. So let's click that. It takes a little bit of time to spin up all of the things that go into a Glitch project. So whilst it's doing that, I'm going to head over to the daily dashboard. And this is what you'll see after you've signed up for daily. You can get there via daily dashboard.daily.co. And what I want to do is create a new room where we can host all of the work that we're doing today. Just as a note, you can see, and you entered this in when you registered, but you can see the domain that you are using right now. Mine is JPT. Just take a mental note of that. We will use it later. So I'm going to navigate to rooms. And here you can see a list of all the rooms that you've created. You might not see any if you haven't created one yet. And we're going to click create room. I'm going to call mine workshop and just leave. There's a whole load of things that we'll cover off a little bit later, but we can leave everything as it is for now and just click create room. And there we go. We now have a room called workshop. If I go back to my glitch project now, you can see everything is set up. Hopefully it is for you too. And I'll just give you a little tour about everything that we're looking at here. So on the left-hand side panel, you can see all the files that Glitch has created for us for a very basic static web page. And that's the HTML, a script, JavaScript file, and styles.css for our CSS. There's also an asset section, which we'll use in a little bit, but for now we can keep focused on this. There is also quite a handy preview panel down here. So if you click on preview at the very bottom and click open preview pane, I can see what my project looks like, and I can edit it. If I was to go into index.html, I can make changes and it would obviously reflect that in real time, which is really cool. It takes a little time to refresh sometimes. So there we are. The other thing I want to do really quickly is just rename my project. Nothing wrong with fish, petal, spirit, but maybe we can think of something a little bit more verbose. So I'll just call this Daily Jan Workshop. You guys can call yours whatever you like. So there we are. If you wanted to see the project outside of just this little panel here, the easiest and quickest way to do that is if you click this ellipsis up here, you can copy link, open a new tab, paste that in, and you will see it in all its glory. So taking a step back, our first port of call is to get Daily Prebuilt embedded into the project itself. So to do that, what I'm going to do is start with this index.html file and just remove all the stuff that we don't really need that Glitch adds for us. So I'm just going to remove these meta tags here. We don't need those. Get rid of those. I'm going to remove everything inside the body tag. And I'll slow down in just a second so you guys can keep up. And yeah, just keep it clean. We don't need all the extra things. So I just have right now a very empty HTML page. So if I was to refresh, you'll see there's nothing to look at. And what we want to do is first and foremost, get the hosted daily.js library that will give our page all the necessary scripts to embed and run Daily Prebuilt and drop this into the head of the page. So I have a snippet already, but you guys can copy this and I'll pop it in chat in just a second. So we're just going to put that here. So script, and this is the URL for the hosted version. I will just nip back here, pop this, pop this into chat so you guys can use it. Start sharing my screen again. There we go. The next thing I want to do is create the call frame, which is the iframe window that renders pre-built user interface. To do that, I'm going to add some script to the body tag of this page, and I'm going to write this manually. So I'm going to create a new script tag. Inside there, I'm going to create a new variable. So constant call frame equals window dot daily iframe. Oops, sorry, not a capital F. Dot create frame, like this. And there we go. Just checking that's all good. If we refresh the page, nothing happens. There's just a little call frame at the bottom there. And we might want to pass through some configuration options because it's kind of floating there on its own. It's not really doing very much. I'd like it to fill the whole real estate of the page. So to do that, we can pass through some kind of configuration options to the create frame method. And all of this is kind of detailed in our documentation, but we're only going to keep it very simple today. So I'm going to create a new object, a configuration object, hit enter. And the first thing I want to do is create a leave button. So people that join the call can leave if they want. It's kind of handy. So we're going to say show leave button true. Then I want to pass through some styles to the iframe itself to make it take up the full width and height of the page. So I'm going to do iframe style, create a new object. And this is just some CSS and JavaScript. We're going to say position is fixed, top 0, top 0. It's always hard to type when I know people are watching. Left is 0. The width is going to be 100%, and the height is going to be 100%. And that should do it. So if we refresh the page now, well, we can't actually see anything, mainly because we haven't joined the call yet. So what we need to do is call another property underneath this, which is call frame dot join. And that is instructing us to join the call that we created earlier. So join that room that we created together in the daily dashboard. So I'm going to call this method and pass through the URL of that room. Now this will be unique for each of you, depending on the domain that you have set up. One handy way you can get a hold of this is if you go into the room that you created, there is a little copy clipboard, or you can just take the full URL here, which is what I'm going to do. It includes your domain as well. Go back to our glitch project and drop that in there. And there we are. So if I refresh the page, now we have a full screen. Oh, I can see myself now. That's good. We have a full screen daily pre-built setup. We're ready to go at this point. If you'd like to open it in a separate tab and you can see how it looks, you can totally do that. As I showed you earlier, you can just grab it from this ellipsis here. Tasha, anything in chat at this point, or shall I keep going?
Thanks for stopping. We just had Brian ask if we could provide a copy of the page code after the workshop, and we will certainly do that. That will be included in the follow-up email. And just a reminder, you can put questions in the chat anytime. We'll answer them at the end of every section, just like this.
Okay, so we've got set up with Daily Prebuilt. It's all looking great, but what I'd like to do now is customize this with my own logo and some hypothetical brand colors. So let's get started with the logo. The first thing I want to do is upload the image file into Glitch. So we can do that by clicking assets on the left-hand side here, and we can see all the assets that we have available. I'm going to drag and drop my handy little daily logo in here, but please feel free to use something super fun. And once it's finished uploading, if you click on that asset, you get this URL here that we can use within the HTML. So I'm going to copy that URL. And we go back to index.html. And what I'm going to do is just create a standard HTML image on the page. So we're going to say img. First of all, I want to give it an ID. I'll explain why I want to do that later, but we're going to call it logo. I'm going to put the source that we just copied in here. And an alt tag daily, and that should do it. Now, if you refresh, you'll notice we can't actually see it when the call frame loads. Why is that? Well, that's because we're we're using position fixed on the call frame. So it's sitting above all of the other elements on the page, but no worries, we can fix that up. And this is where we can use Glitch's handy little style.css that it imports by default. So I'm going to jump over there and I'm just going to create a new, I don't know, we can put it under the body here. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but that's why we gave our logo an ID. So I'm going to put logo, position, absolute, top 42 pixels. You can use whatever works for you. Left 8 pixels. I already know what these are. I'm spoiling things here. And the Z index, set it to 99 so that it appears above our call frame. Now if we refresh the page, we should see it. And there we are. We can see our logo on the page. And sorry if this is way too much JavaScript and HTML at this point. We'll get much more further into Daily Prebuilt as we progress, but I just want to set up some basic things for now. So there we are, our logo's there, but it doesn't look quite right. I'm using dark mode on my Mac by default, and the logo I'm using, it's kind of impossible to see against the dark background of the default pre-built theme. So I could, of course, just upload a different logo or adjust it using some clever CSS techniques or use an SVG or something like that. But this is a good opportunity to talk about themes. We understand at Daily that every brand is unique, so you'll likely want to have the UI match the colors and styles of your brand. So Daily allows you to pass through styles to the call frame, all of which is detailed on our customizing Daily Prebuilt page on our docs. It also allows you to configure a theme for both light mode and dark mode, which is really cool. Although you can override this behavior entirely and just use one set of colors if you just pass through a single theme object. So that's what we'll do today, and I'll show you how we can do that. It's really easy. So in our create frame configuration object that we created earlier, we're going to create a new property. Make sure to put a comment after the iframe style. I'm going to pass through theme, create a new object, and call colors. Then we're going to pass through an accent, and I'm just going to use a blue color that I like. It's the same one we use on the docs. I'm going to save that and refresh. Now you can see we don't have the dark background anymore. We have a lighter background. We can see our logo. It looks much better. And rather than the green that we had before, we have a blue join button, which is the blue that I've used here that I've passed through to accent. I'm pretty happy with this, but when I actually join the call, Daily has this darker background behind the video tiles by default. We can't see our logo anymore. So we should probably fix that up before we move on. And that's really easy to do. If we go back to the documentation, you can see that there's this handy table that shows you all of the different properties that you can pass through and what they do. And I've just landed my mouse on main area background, the background color for the main call area. So that's the one we want. I'm going to grab that, go back to our index page and put this in and set that to be white. So if I refresh the page now, join the call, great. Now we can see our logo. It looks much better than it did before, and it's not contrasting as badly. So I'll leave this call. So things are looking great. We have the new call frame set up. We have put our logo in there. There's one thing I did notice though, and I'm not sure if you guys caught it as well, but when we're on a smaller screen real estate, our logo is kind of overlapping this pre-join. We call it the hair check at Daily, but this pre-join screen, that's not particularly great. And we can probably do something about that. Right now, I'm going to touch on what we talked about earlier, which is how Prebuilt is built on top of our JavaScript SDK. So we can tap into the underlying events triggered by the Daily.js library to listen for when a meeting has been joined. If you navigate to our docs, there is under Daily.js an events section, and you'll see that we have a whole load of different events that we emit throughout the flow of a web call. And we can listen to those events within Daily Prebuilt with a little bit of code. So what I'm going to do is listen for this join meeting event. And when that is triggered, I'm going to hide the logo. I'm going to show the logo, but otherwise hide it so we don't see it on the pre-join screen. We only show it once we've joined a call. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So to start with, what I want to do is go to my image tag that we set up earlier. And I'm just going to pass some styles through in line here. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here, rushing through. And I'm just going to put display none. So some very basic CSS that will just hide the logo. So I'll refresh now. Brilliant, we can't see the logo anymore. And now what we want to do is listen for that event that is triggered by the variable that we defined earlier, this call frame variable, whenever the call is joined. So I'm going to start a new line of code underneath, sorry, beg your pardon, above the join method. We want to make sure we're listening to the event before we've joined the call. I'm going to type call frame dot on and then joined meeting. And then I'm being quick and hasty here, but we're just going to create an arrow function. And we're going to write some vanilla JavaScript to toggle the display state of our logo. So document.get element by ID. What that is doing is looking for an ID, and we're going to tell it to look for the ID of logo, which is what we've called our image tag here. And we're going to set style display equals block. So what that is saying is once this join meeting event has been triggered by the call frame, find me the element with the ID of logo and display block. So let's see if that works. I'll refresh again just to be sure there's no gremlins in the system. Click join, and there we are. The logo displays. Fantastic. We could also take this further by making it hide again when we click leave. I'll leave that out for now, but you can have a lot of fun. The events are very, very powerful. I know Jack is going to touch on this a little bit more in this workshop, but you can obviously get creative and trigger events and manipulate elements on the page, send data to your server, whatever it is you would like to do in your app. Events are definitely a good place to get started for that sort of advanced functionality. I'll pause there. Tasha, anything to bring up?
I don't see anything so far. I'll also invite people to let us know how the pace is going for you. So if you need us to slow down or repeat anything, definitely give us a shout in the chat. But John, I will let you get back to it.
Great. I hope that's because it's making a lot of sense to everybody. But yes, definitely shout at me if things are not clicking. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is that there is a lot of features that Daily Prebuilt has that aren't enabled by default. And these could be useful for your use case. By default, we obviously want to appeal to the broadest possible set of use cases. So we make some sensible decisions as to what the defaults are for Daily Prebuilt. But you can change that. And there's certain things that we can do that will be a lot of fun. So I'm going to navigate back to my room section of my dashboard and go to the room that I created earlier. When you're on here, you can see a rundown of all the different features that are enabled or disabled. And if we want to edit that, you can do this programmatically through our REST API, or if you, just for the sake of simplicity, and so you guys can see what I'm actually doing, you can actually change them via the dashboard. You can click this ellipsis here, click on change settings, and you'll see all of the different things and the toggle states associated with each. So let's say that I wanted to enable emoji reactions. I could toggle that on, and then I can click change settings. It will tell me the changes that I've made. I can click save. And now when I join my call, well, I don't know why that's not showing. Probably needed to refresh. You would see an emoji reaction button that you could click that would show some flying emojis on the pre-built. I don't want to get too deep into this point. The main reason to show you guys this is that there is plenty of other functionality that you can enable through the dashboard. The main reason to come to this section is when we're talking about access control. Right now, our room is set to public, and that means anyone can join the call. As if they have the URL, they can join the session. That's it. As simple as that. For some use cases, that might just be fine. But we might want to implement more stringent control so that folks with can't join the call if you don't want them to. We have two privacy options. One is public and one is private. So let's change our room to private and see what happens. So modifying the room workshop, setting it to private. It requires a token to join. I'll click save. Now, if we come back to our call, just want to make sure I put the right room in. I did. Hopefully this works this time. You can see I'm not allowed to join the meeting. That is because Daily doesn't have a concept of who I am. I don't have a valid key to join this call. So since the room is private, I am locked out. I cannot join. So now it's time to talk about meeting tokens. And no, that's not NFT related. It's something way more fun. And I'm going to just jump back to my slides to talk a little bit about what meeting tokens are. Meeting tokens are essentially per user keys that we can issue to grant someone access to a call and provide them with the necessary privileges, such as being able to turn on their mics or cameras or kick other users, so on and so forth. Right now, in this very session, for example, Jack, Tasha, and I have a meeting token that grant us the ability to unmute our cameras and our mics. For everyone else watching, your tokens specify that you can't do that. You can only watch, and the unmute buttons on your UI don't function. Since tokens are issued by our server, they're also a far more secure way to grant access to a call, as it prevents a malicious actor who can use the JavaScript console to force entry or brute force guess the URL or something like that. This is a server-side way of issuing someone a key to a call. Finally, tokens are kind of like the primary way in which you can associate a daily user session to that of your own user on your own backend. Perhaps you'd like to check that your existing user authentication system says that they can join. Have they paid for the session, or whatever administrative table properties you have? You can check those first before you issue a token to someone. I will say at this point that the concept of meeting tokens is quite broad, and it can be a little bit confusing at first. So we're going to keep things really, really simple here today, and I'll do my best to illustrate how they work, even though we don't have the scope in this workshop to go and set up an entire backend service and code all of that stuff. I'll try and give you the principles so that you can apply it to your own project, or if you wanted to take your project a day further, you understand what's happening. And yes, if any of these concepts are confusing to you, hit us up in chat. We'll do our best to help you out. So let's take a look at how the flow of a token works. We start on the left with our client. So this is our pre-built project that we're working on right now. Let's pretend we had a backend server somewhere where we had our own database of users or something along those lines. We want to know, can this user that's requesting to join the call, are they logged into our user management system? And when I say our, I mean yours, not Daily's. What privileges or features did we want them to have during the call? And how long is the token valid for? So our server can then issue a request to Daily's REST API to generate a token. But in order for Daily to know that this is a valid request, it comes from me at my domain and I'm who I say I am, we have to use our super secret Daily developer key. So that will handshake with the REST API endpoint and issue a token. So it'll either throw an error if that isn't the case, or there's some other malformed data as part of the request. It will send that token back to our backend server and then onto our client so that we can use the token it generates to join the call. I'm going to pause here, Tasha. Does anyone have anything that doesn't make sense about tokens? Otherwise, I'll whiz on and show an example.
Nice. We do have a question. The first token is my owner token, right? Tom, do you want to explain a little more what you're asking, and then we can do our best to help you?
I mean, the first token will not necessarily be your owner token. No, you have to specify that you want the token to have call owner privileges. So much like in this example I'm showing on Glitch right now, if I'm trying to join code that I own, but it still won't let me join. And that's because I haven't passed through a token. And if I wanted to join it as a call owner, I would have to say to the daily REST endpoint, I would like a call owner token, please. So you have to be quite granular about the privileges that you want the token to have. And this might make a little bit more sense if we actually walk through an example. So we'll do that now. I don't have a backend server set up to demo this, but what I am going to do is cheat a little bit and pretend that we do. So I'm going to use Postman, which is, you can think of this as just a way to make web requests. And we're going to make a web request to the meeting token endpoint at Daily. And that is, we're going to pass it through some properties. So we can specify what we'd like to do. And if we were to send that now, you can see that it's going to say invalid authorization header. It doesn't know who I am. Daily's meeting token endpoint is saying, hey, I don't know who you are. You're asking me for a token. Please leave me alone. So what we need to do is tell the REST API who we are. And we can do that by passing it our super secret key. Now, you should protect this key at all costs and never do what I'm doing now. I'm purely showing you this for the purposes of this workshop. But you'd obviously want to keep your daily secret key in some encrypted environment variable somewhere, or something on your server side where people can't get at it. I'm just going to paste it in here and of course reset it after this workshop, just to illustrate how a token can be generated. So I'm going to go back to my developer console. I'm going to go onto developers here, and I'm going to grab my key, and then I'll go back to Postman, and I'll put this in under authorization, under bearer token, and we can share some code to show how you would do this on the server side as well, but purely illustrative. I'll put my token in here. Now, if I send that now, it knows who I am. It knows, okay, this is coming from the domain JPT. He's asking me for a token. Here it is. And it's giving me a token in the response here. But we can take that further by passing through specific properties to that request. So this token will work anywhere, but I only want it to work for that specific room. So I can put room name here and workshop, which is the room we created earlier. Now you can see what these properties are if you were to go to the meeting token section of our docs, and under configuration, there's a whole bunch. There's so much flexibility that you can have with meeting tokens. For example, you could say start with the video off, start with audio off, can they enable recording, so on and so forth. So if we go back now to our Postman app and click send, it's going to give us another token. So I'm going to grab this, go back to my glitch project here. And what we can do is pass this token, and you can maybe try and imagine that you wouldn't write this in manually. This would come from some backend service that you would run somewhere. We can say token, and I'll just paste in that key that I was sent by the API. And I'll refresh. Now, if I try and join, hooray, it let me join. If I was to take that token away, oh, we can see reactions are enabled now. I don't know why that didn't work earlier, but there it is. I can send a lovely clap. I'll leave the call, and we might want to do something else with the token. So let me just build on this a little bit. Let's say that we want to send some permissions through. Let's say that we don't want this person, whoever they are, to be able to send audio and video. We just want them to be a watcher in the call, although we'd still like to see them in our participant list. So I can pass through another property, permissions, and I'll put can send to false. So I don't have the permissions to send video or audio. I could put an array. So I could say audio. I can't, I can send audio, but I can't send video. Or there's other combinations of string that you could put, but I'm just going to put false to everything so that I can't send any video or audio data. I'm going to request a token. Now we have a new token. I'll go back to my glitch project and I'll throw this in. Now, if I refresh and join, you'll see I am not able to send video or audio. How cool is that? Okay, so before I hand over to Jack, I was actually going to show you the cow.com scheduling part too, but I think what we'll do, Tasha, if it's okay, is we'll cover that at the end so people can take a break from my voice and Jack can show us some more advanced concepts, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. We just have one question that came in. Is there a limit to how many tokens you can generate?
So there is a rate limit attached to the API itself, although it's quite flexible. Obviously, if you've got a lot of people joining a call, you need to be able to create those tokens. But I don't think there's a limit really worth specifying. Obviously, Daily supports calls to thousands of people, so you should be absolutely fine. Unless there's a specific meaning of the word limit that you're implying there, but drop it in chat and I'll answer it for you.
All right. And also, can you use self-signed tokens? No need to use the API?
You totally can. And I will show you very quickly on our docs. If you go to the meetings token section, there is a self-signing tokens session here, which goes into all of the details that you need to know about how to self-sign tokens. Really important if security matters to you. So check that out. But yes, you can do that.
Cool. I'll drop that link into the chat in just a second. And I'm just like I knew all the questions are coming in, and I'm so happy because tokens can be tricky, but we're always here to help you. We have another question. How do we go about the token generation in marketplaces?
So I'm guessing that means if you wanted to have multiple, you have multiple end customers that have end users, right? So you want to be able to have your call frame used across different, let's say, customers of us, so it's business, business, business. That is quite an advanced question to ask. You can do it, and we have customers that do that. But I would have to take that up with you offline because it's quite involved. There is certain logic that you need to implement. So if it's okay, Daniel, I will follow up with you. But maybe that's something we can do after.
That's great. Yeah, definitely follow up. And I think we don't have any more questions about tokens. We'll give it another minute here just so folks can catch their breath, let all that knowledge sink into their heads. Okay, I think we're good. Shall we pass it on to Jack? All right.
All right, thanks, Tasha. Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. Okay, so I'm working in a different glitch project here, but the concept should be mostly familiar. We're just gonna go through at a high level to kick things off, and then we'll dive a bit deeper. So this part of the session is going to cover adding some custom functionality to the video call through this concept called custom tray buttons. So what does that mean? Well, you'll see to the left side here, we have camera controls, mic controls, people, reactions, sharing. These are all buttons that were already here for the basic pre-built call experience. And the display or not of them is all configurable through the room settings that John went over a little bit earlier. But these two new ones to the right side, notes and rainbows, these are custom buttons with our own icons that we can use to basically specify new behavior that's going to happen outside of the call based on your own application logic. So let's take that and look at the code itself. Okay, so I've collapsed a lot of these functions just to start things off so we can take a high-level view. Basically, we have a create frame call to do the room configuration and set up the buttons and join the room. So this is very similar to what John went over earlier. You see an iframe style here. The only difference is that instead of putting the style into this object, I've put it into a separate CSS, but it's basically the same. It's taking up the whole window, 100% height, 100% width. And then we have a custom tray buttons that we're going to go over in just a second. We have this other confetti library, which we'll talk about when we get to the rainbows section. And then we have some event listeners. So John mentioned already that we have all kinds of event listeners for things like when a participant joins a room, when they leave, and then probably a dozen others. And we just have another one that we're going to talk about, which is custom button click that's related to these custom buttons that we've put here. And then another one at the very end is a new event called app message, which we're going to use to share information with other people on the call. Okay, so just to kick things off, let's take a look at this notes button. So the notes have my speaking notes, basically. So these are for me. It's just a sticky note of things to go over. And when I click it, it shows up. When I click it again, it hides. That's basically how that works. So let's see how we render that. So the first thing to look at is this custom tray buttons. So if you want to show a new button on the tray, what you do is you just add this custom tray buttons object and then pass in the name of your button. So in this case, we have notes, and we're going to use this later in the event listeners as well. So just keep that in mind. We have this button with ID of notes, and to get it set up, we just need 4 things. We need an icon path for the default, which I'm currently in, and the dark mode. And these are just complete URLs to the images. In this case, the little notes SVG, that little sticky note image. And one thing to mention here is that these paths actually need to be full URLs, not just relative paths. You'll also need a label that will go below the icon, in this case, notes, and then a tooltip that shows up when we hover. Okay, and then you'll see the rainbows icon is set up the same way. We give it a path, we give it another path in dark mode, we give it a rainbows label, and we give it a tooltip. Okay, so that is just the display of the custom buttons. How do we know what to actually do with it? Well, that's how the custom button click event comes in. So like I showed you, it's this toggling behavior, right? So every time that I click a custom button, you're also going to get this event called custom button click that you can listen for. And inside of that event, it's going to have a button ID that you can reference. And you're going to check for the name of that button ID to know which behavior to actually trigger. So in this case, every time I click notes, we're going to receive an event with a button ID of notes. And now we do something very similar to what John did earlier with showing and hiding the daily logo based on whether you were in the call. But in our case, we're going to grab the notes ID, which is right up here. We have this plain div called notes with the notes inside that's hidden by default with the display none. So what we're doing is that if it's currently hidden, we show it by setting its style to display block. And if it's visible, like it is now, then when we click it again, we hide it by setting its style display to none. Okay, so that's covering how you render the custom tray button and how you handle its behavior. And then we have this other one right over here called rainbows. Right now it's not doing anything because I've commented out this code. But as you see, if I uncomment it, we're using this JavaScript library called JS Confetti. And all it does is basically fire confetti on the screen with regular confetti, little colorful sprinkles, or you can configure it to shoot emojis as well. But to see what that looks like, you see that it fires some confetti and, unicorns and rainbows at my screen. Okay, but what about other people on the call? So let me take this URL real quick and show you what it looks like for other people. If this person clicks the rainbows, it's only showing up for them. And now if I click the rainbows, it's only showing up for me. Okay, but what if I wanted to get everybody on the call to see the same rainbows? Then we could do that by this new concept called send app message. So when I call daily.send app message everybody on the call is going to receive this event called app message. And inside of the event is going to be this object, rainbows, true. Now, for other people on the call to receive that event and do something with it, they just need to listen for it. In much the same way that we listen for the button click, we're going to now listen for an app message. And so if the event data has the rainbows key, then we're going to do the same thing that we did before, which is adding confetti. But now it's happening as the result of this event. So this is how you can basically trigger behavior for remote participants. So now if I refresh this page and then click rainbows, you'll see that everybody gets the unicorns and rainbows. Okay, now this brings us to an interesting point, which is app messages don't get sent to the person who sent the message. So when I click rainbows, I'm not actually receiving app message. I'm just shooting the rainbows based on the click event instead. But if I wanted different people on the call to get different emojis, then I could do that here. So I know John really likes squid, for example. So I could just add a squid emoji. And so now when I do my custom button clicks, I'm still going to get rainbows, but let's just pretend that John is over on the bottom left side in that little window. John is going to get just a bunch of squid, no unicorns, no rainbows. So I think that would make him pretty happy. But yeah, this could be done any way you want. You could have different behaviors for local versus remote. One additional note on that is that this send app message, by default, it's sending the app message to everybody on the call. So implicitly, there's this second parameter that's just an asterisk. That means everybody. But if you have people's specific user IDs, then you could pass in a specific user ID to send very granular and targeted messages to different people, depending on your use case. Okay, so I'll stop there and hand it back to Tasha if there's any questions.
I will say once I start to see emojis on the screen, all memory of code goes out the window. And so if that happened for everyone else, definitely put some questions in the chat because that is a super fun feature. It looks like we do have a question here. Says, can I connect to a room without a browser from like a standalone application, for example, Node.js, and then send app messages from it?
Do you want me to answer that, Jack, or? Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, John, go ahead. Sorry.
So love that question. And that's a really common feature request. And the good news is, as I can tell you, that is something that we are very hard at work on implementing. You'll be able to, at some point, send app messages over the REST API. So it doesn't matter whether it's a Node application or anything, you can trigger an app message within a call. I'm not allowed to say exactly when that's coming, nor do I know, but I know it's something that is quite soon and quite high up on our roadmap. So Matt will keep you posted on that as and when you can do it. That unlocks lots of fun functionality. So I'm excited for it myself. Hope it lands soon.
Nice. We have another question for send message. Is it session ID or user ID for personal message?
You would want to use the session ID there. And actually, maybe, Tasha, just for 2 minutes, I'll talk about the differences between the both. But by default, user ID will be set to the session ID. But user ID is actually intended as a property that you can specify on the token to bind a daily participant to, say, your own
server-side user ID. So you can actually override that property, and that's quite useful. It might be that you want to identify a user in the call based on your own set predicates or something like that. So the two properties, they might look the same if you were analyzing the object itself, but if you check out our docs, you'll realize that there's actually a distinction between both. And for this particular instance, you'd want to use the session ID.
Thank you so much. All right, let's keep going.
So I was going to close out by doing some fun stuff with cal.com, if that's all right with you, Tasha. And then
yes, we'd love to see it.
Great. So I'll share my screen again. And I apologize, everybody. My internet is not playing ball with me today. Always the way when you've got to do a live workshop. There we are. So I'll do my best. So we have our glitch project that we set up earlier. Nothing has changed since I showed you last time. And let's say we want to share this with folks so that they can book a session with us. And we want to use our new designed and styled call UI. So if we were to open this, and we looked at this earlier, if I was to open this in a new window, let's say we want to use a calendar app so that people can book an appointment with me. And then in the calendar itself, it will show the call UI that we have. So I just allow the permissions. So if you have a cal.com account, and if you don't, I definitely recommend checking them out. They're awesome. It's a really simple way to achieve this. So if we go to their dashboard, click the Go to App button on the top right, you'll see all the different event types that you have set up. So these are mine. And if I was to create a new event, I'll just do it under my own personal account. Let's call this workshop. 15 minutes is fine. I'm going to create that event type. And an event type is a URL that you can send someone to book some time with you. And it's linked to your calendar. So I'm using Google Calendar behind the scenes. In this view here, you'll see at the very bottom, there's a location function. And in that, there's the option to put in your own link. You'll also notice there's Cal Video here. Cal are actually using Daily behind the scenes, but and they're using Daily Prebuilt, but we're going to use our own custom version instead. So we're going to use link. And in that, what I want to do is grab my call URL, so the one that we created earlier in Glitch, and I'm going to put that in here. So what this means is when someone books a calendar event with me, it will use this URL in the location field so they can click and join our call. So I'm going to click update. So now what I can do is if I go back to the event that I just created and preview this, I can send this link out to folks. So it's cal.com/daily/workshop, which is the event type that I just made. And you can see that all the different all the different availabilities that I have. I can say that I want to book an appointment on Thursday with John. I can click that, specify a time, and I'd have to fill this out. So test daily.co. We'll leave that free and I'll click confirm. So now what I can show you guys is that I have, and I'm trying to figure out a way of doing this without showing my entire calendar. Just bear with me a second. There we are. Just a second, please. Drag this over here. So now, if I was to look at my calendar, I can see that a new entry has come in, workshop between Jonathan and Test, and I can see that the URL, that's using, did I make a mistake there? Yes, I did. I must have made a mistake there. So sorry. Let me go back and fix that. What did we do wrong there? So if we go back to our workshop event, click edit. Oh, it didn't save for some reason. That's strange. I'll put that link back in. Update. Save. I probably didn't click save last time, did I? I was being silly. So if we go back now, I'll have to rebook that event, I'm afraid. So we'll do that process again. I'll book a session on Thursday, tomorrow at 13 o'clock. Test daily.co, confirm. And obviously Cal has got its own set of APIs behind it and SDK, so you can style it in exactly the same way using a similar kind of theme approach. They also have this really awesome like workflows set up where you can step through various different things. So once a meeting is scheduled, trigger an email and include the link in there too. So we can now see the workshop. There we are. And you'll see that's got my URL in there. So if I was to click on that, it would throw me into the glitch project that we created with our custom styles and our logo that appears when we join. Just unfortunately, no unicorns and rainbows, but I'm sure with Jack's helpful tips, you could get that implemented as well.
That was so cool. I love to see that functionality with cal.com. That's pretty new. And if you have questions about that, definitely put them in the chat, or you can always drop those into the forum and we'll be happy to answer those there. With that said, we have two really good questions, John and Jack, if you don't mind, I'd like to go over. The first one is, can every participant interact and edit the notes from the note button? That was in the Jack example. So Jack, when you had that, is that something that everyone else could interact with?
In this specific example, yeah, that div was on, it's just a static div that everybody had on their page. But in general, it could be set up either way. So in this example where I was kind of assuming that this is like a private notes, right? Then if you have an application where you imagine that the video call is just a part of the page and you already have like a logged in experience, then that button could be set up to show and hide the notes for the logged in user, in which case everybody would just see their own. But it's very flexible. So for example, that notes button could have been used to show and hide an embedded Google Doc link instead, where everybody's collaborating on it. It really depends on your use case and exactly whether you want everybody to see the same thing or not.
Thanks, Jack. We have another question. I love this because it's such a detailed use case. And I'm so glad that you asked this, Daniel. The question is, you got a low code, no code share or request, maybe both. I've been experimenting with integrating Webflow and MemberStack and Airtable with Daily Prebuilt to create a marketplace platform where users can initiate daily calls with other users based on their designated level or tier. That is so cool. The solution utilizes the MemberStack API to match users according to their level or tier and then synced with Airtable. The user IDs are then pulled from Airtable to facilitate the scheduling of calls between the users. I've established separate Airtable bases, running server-side code from napkin.io to interlink every platform, and have been learning how to utilize the APIs of all 4 platforms, Webflow, MemberStack, Airtable, and Daily, while the project is still ongoing. I would appreciate any suggestions or guidance on how to optimize this solution. I love it. And I have a feeling we won't be able to fully answer it, but maybe we could give an overview and then follow up with Daniel with more details.
So Daniel, I believe I saw this conversation come up yesterday internally at Daily. I'm not sure if it was you or if there's someone else that asked a very, very similar question with the same setup. So thank you for bringing it to this forum. And I know that it was something that we were talking a lot about, and we'll obviously get back to you on the exact way in which you can do this. I'll be honest, I've not personally used MemberStack before, although I checked it out when I saw that conversation, and it's really great. And I'm pretty sure, from the way I understand it, what you're trying to achieve should be possible if you stitch the right kind of tools together to make this kind of, it's almost like a complete serverless stack, isn't it? It's very cool. So the answer I'm going to say is, I reckon you can do it. I'm pretty sure you can do it, but we're going to have to connect so we can talk together through exactly how we stitch it all together, get set up exactly like you were asking earlier with tokens and such. Yeah, I hope that's okay. There's a lot here that I need to dig into fully to make some assertive recommendations.
That's cool. Just to see the idea of the use case. And yes, I will vouch for this solutions team and our support team. If you reach out to them, they will help you with your use case. So please don't be afraid to reach out to them, and we'll make sure that we follow up with you.
I will say as well, Daniel, just quickly, it's a really interesting use case as well. So definitely one that's piqued a lot of interest internally is how you can use these SaaS products to kind of engineer is effectively an entire stack, which is very interesting. So we'll definitely chat.
Cool. Matt is asking, is it possible in Prebuilt to change layout of the main area, the one where video streams are visible? For example, in a call with just 2 users, I might want to have them stacked side by side or one over the other. Is this possible? Oh, I can't wait for the answer to this one.
Do you want me to take it, Jack?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Sure. So Matt, Prebuilt is fully responsive. And what that means is you can embed it in such a container where that layout would kind of be organically happen. And you can probably see that if you were to resize the window that you're looking at right now and see how the tiles cascade. I'm guessing the question, though, is that you have a very specific UI in mind that you'd like to use. And that would require quite a bit of engineering to make work. So this is where, adding custom features and functionality of Prebuilt is extremely extensible, and there's a lot you can do there, as we've shown you today. But when it comes to kind of rearranging specific layouts and UIs, there is some limits as to what you can do there. Otherwise, the product would kind of fall over itself if you were passing through certain things. So what I can recommend to you there is 2 things. One, depending on your use case, you can design a responsive container that would probably work, much like you would see on mobile if you were to load this webinar on mobile. Or the second is you might want to engage in kind of creating your own custom cool UI using the Daily React library that I cited earlier, which has a lot of the components that we're actually using in Prebuilt, but it would require that little bit of extra code. Very happy to talk more about this. And if you have that specific UI in mind, please share that with us. And maybe there's some things we can do today that don't require going down the route of building a fully custom cool UI. I hope I understood that correctly.
All right, another question from Solomon, and this is mobile related. On my mobile device, I observe the frame for this meeting is not fixed. What setting can be used to make the meeting window fit perfectly on the mobile screen?
I think there's probably very good reason for that. And I don't exactly know what it is. I'd have to find out for you, Solomon. But what my understanding is that the pre-built mobile view has been excruciatingly optimized so that it works across a whole manner of different devices and screen sizes. So I imagine it's not fixed for a reason. That said, the same degree of customization that you have with web pre-built, you also have in mobile pre-built as well. So you could probably pass through some mobile CSS, some CSS to the core frame, much like you would do in the web if you're using React Native, so on and so forth. And you could probably make that element fixed on the screen or resize it accordingly. We have some customers, for example, that within their web view, they like to have some surrounding Chrome and UI. So they reduce the height, reduce the width, so on and so forth. So it is pretty flexible. But again, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, Tasha, but there's probably a good reason as to why it's not fixed. Yep.
Fair enough. If that isn't clear, feel free to put something more in the chat, or you can always reach out to us in the community or on support. We have a few more questions. I want to make sure we get to these, and then we will wrap up. And of course, there'll be time for you to ask additional questions in the forum. But let's get to these last few because we have one about cal.com. The Cal feature was so cool. A quick question on that one. Is there a way we could integrate the daily API in cal.com to have users book calls and generate different links for different calls between users independently?
Daniel's asking the good questions today. And I love that you asked this question. And I'm not sure if any of our friends from cal.com are watching because I would love that function. Now, you could do this. You could use their webhooks and engineer some pretty advanced stuff to make it happen. And that kind of felt like out of scope for this particular workshop. It would be quite a heavy lift. But what I'm hoping and what I'm guessing from the roadmap that the cal.com team have is that there will be some way in the future to kind of, before the event is created, there's a webhook that triggers where you can go away, generate a room and the relevant tokens on the Daily REST API, create that URL, and send it back to Cal. They're almost there. That workflows thing I mentioned when I was demoing it pretty much does what you need. It just doesn't have that one particular event. I will reach out to the guys and see if they have plans to do that. And I'm definitely with you. It would be really cool. All I would say is Cal Video uses Daily Prebuilt under the hood, and that's there by default. So you can get set up and running with cal.com straight away and get all the benefits that you get from Daily today.
Cool. Matt is asking, is it possible to mute all other speakers in a room I am not an owner of? Oh, I love that. For example, I'm in a busy daily room and someone in my office starts to talk to me. I would want to mute the whole daily room just for myself. Currently, I'm reverting to setting up a dummy audio device in OS and marking it as the output device, but it's cumbersome.
Yeah, you can do that. I wish I had some code to show you right now, but what you'd want to do, and I think this came up recently internally, we were discussing how you can mute all audio elements on a page. I believe it's possible with pre-built, but what you'd want to do is loop through the entire iframe DOM and find all the audio elements and mute them. I'm not sure if that would work with cross-origin. I'd have to verify that. Or there might be browser-specific APIs where you can, oh no, you could do it with it. Tasha, there is a lot of ways to think about this one. So it might be worth that we follow up with some sample code on that. But it's definitely, it's like a mute mode, isn't it? It's like someone walks in, you just want to mute something really quickly without closing the tab. And you could probably create a custom button that does that somehow. I just think there might be some sharp edges you need to work around with iframe permissions and stuff. You might even just be able to mute the entirety of the pre-built iframe. So I'd have to confirm that.
That's great. And I just wanted to highlight here, I love how the solutions team's eyes light up when there's something challenging that you ask us, because even if it's something that we can't do right now, you've got us thinking and we'll figure out a way to do it. I've seen that happen in so many cases. So I love those challenging questions. Okay, this is the last question that we're going to do. And then after that, we'll wrap up. The last question is, any plans to have React hooks in React Native similar to web?
I'm so sorry, Tasha, could you repeat that?
Sure. Do we have any plans to have React hooks in React Native similar to React Web?
Love that question too. Not right now, but it's definitely something we're thinking about as we've seen the adoption of the Daily React library, or the React Hooks library as it was called before. A lot of that code does actually work in React Native. You would have to modify it slightly, and that library is open source. I know some of the hooks work, some of them don't. There are some adjustments that you need to make. So that's a strong signal to us that it's something that we want to be thinking about. We have a lot of customers at Daily that use React Native, and I can see the value in them having a library similar to Daily React. So it's definitely something that the team is aware of and we are thinking about. And I'm sorry we don't have it today, but if it's absolutely essential that you have it, what I would suggest is taking a look at the source code of those hooks in the web version. They're not that complex. They're simple. They're coded really, really well, and you might be able to adapt them to React Native, or they might even just work as is, depending on the hook or component that you're trying to use. But I hear you, Jonathan. It's definitely something we're thinking about.
Awesome. Here I am again, and I think we'll wrap up now. Thank you so much, John and Jack, for being here. I just want to go over a few notes before we take off. So let me please share my screen. Here we go. So thanks so much again for joining us all. Today, there will be a follow-up thread that will be on Pure Connection, our developer forum, where you'll be able to watch a recording of this workshop. You can also ask additional questions there, and we will be ready to follow up with you anytime. We will be sending a follow-up email. Once the recording is ready, That email will contain the link. I'll also provide information about our weekly Q&A sessions that we're starting next week, which is basically like what you saw in the last 5 minutes of this workshop. It's just people coming in, asking solutions team their questions live, and we'll do our best to answer them. We're going to try and do that weekly for you all. So I hope to see some of you there. We also have another workshop coming up in February where we'll go over more advanced video concepts. If you're interested in that, I will drop that link in the chat right now. It is also on the daily.co page. Let me just bring this up for you. Here we go. So if you're interested in this workshop, there's the link there. That will be in the email I'm sending out. And of course, if you want to talk to our sales team, there's the link. You can reach out to them anytime. If you want to talk to support, please do so, or come say hi to us in the community. And with that, I'll thank everybody for being here. Bye for now.